Hi guys, welcome to DeFi Summit. So this one's going to be our researching DeFi trends, past and future outlooks. And today I have two very special guests on stage. First one's going to be Yosef Shaftal and also James Wool. Welcome. All right.
Thanks for having us.
Before we get started, I want the audience to kind of get a little bit of an understanding of what you guys do within the space and kind of like what you guys are working on, who you are. Yosef, would you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, with pleasure. I'm the executive director of the Israeli Blockchain Association, where what we do is we help individuals, corporates, universities, governments, as well as startups and investors with everything they need in the crypto and the blockchain journey. And also we have an accelerator for startups to, get their stuff together and hit the market with the go-to-market strategy for them to be able to be well positioned with it.
Excellent, welcome. And also I'd like to welcome James as well. James, would you be able to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you do as well?
Sure, thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. This is James. I'm the CEO and the founder of DFG. DFG is basically an investment firm in the crypto industry for 6 years. I started a company back to 2015. So start with venture capital investment in the industry, and start with equity investment, including Circle, Ledger, Brave, K, Coin, Abyssal, Ripple, and a few others. Then we shift our focus to investing into the tokens, including the protocols and applications, including the protocol like Near, Solana, Avalanche, Filecoin, and a few others. And the application side, we're pretty diversified in the Ethereum Polkadot ecosystem. So far we're investing into more than 100 different kind of projects.
Excellent, welcome. And I'd like to kind of like jump into a few different topics. Just be able to kind of like get some of these things out. And now we're looking at like researching DeFi trends, and we kind of like looked at like DeFi summer, right? Is what we call it. The kind of like the beginning wave of it. Like, how did you guys felt that went? Did you guys feel like it was too fast? Was the adoption kind of like a little bit of a steep curve, or what happened there?
I'll go first. I think that the adoption was exactly what you said. It was a little bit too much, too fast. But what's the problem with it that I see is that it was a little bit disproportionate, because the crypto summer basically gave quite a bit of money to the people that were crypto loyalists that suffered through the bear market. And basically, all the money that came into DeFi came from the surplus of the money that was in the crypto market, which sort of created a gap that the outside world was sort of like stuck out of it, because the projects that were looking to raise money, looking to get a new DeFi protocol going on, they were basically stuck for the people that are within the circle, within the crypto, and the doors were a little bit shut for the outsiders to be able to get in and participate. So that's what I think was a little bit of challenging, and we're seeing that right now, I think, because people didn't get the benefits and the X's and the good returns that the DeFi sector gave to all of us during the summer times.
I think the super high APYs in the beginning too was very, I guess everyone was chasing those 1,000% pools, 5,000% pools and things like that. But kind of like how some of our other panelists have said, it's like, if you don't realize the yield, you are the yield, right? Because like with a lot of these DeFi protocols, you see a lot of, like 1,000%. And then what happens the next day is like their token goes to, very low price. A lot of these meme coins kind of came up recently as well. Like, Shiba and kind of Doge has its rally and everything, but there's also a lot of like other things that are being built in the space that is really, really cool. For example, like Uniswap v3 was released, it's kind of like integrating that NFT aspect into the liquidity pools to be able to, mitigate a little bit more of like impermanent loss, because we've seen with like regular Uniswap where you're potentially at a maximum rate of like, up to 99% if one of your pairing tokens is going down in value. But even for like ETH and USDC pairs as well, it's like we saw 50% impermanent loss if one of them just drops down to zero at any given time. So I think that like with that being said as well, it's like with the adoption of like DeFi that is kind of like really, really bringing up right now, like how do you think it enters into like the real world? Like how do you think like real world adoptions would kind of come from DeFi? Anyone?
Sure, I'll go. I think that in order for the DeFi to be adapted to the real world, first of all, we as the crypto community need to sort of be a little bit more humble than where we are right now. we should sort of expand our brain that this is not a game for the coders, by the coders, only for the coders, that it's a game that's entitling everybody. And instead of coming arrogantly and saying we're setting our rules, this is the way the game should be played, and everybody else should sort of play the game by our rules, I think we should start adopting more and more of the established rules that are out there in the financial system, and sort of like open a door to them for them to be able to come in. And instead of giving them a brand new rule book that they will never understand, no matter how hard they'll try, I think we should sort of like rewrite the rule book for them and show it to them that sort of like it's not something brand new for them. It's something that the rules that they can relate to. And that would be the segue, I think, for them to come in and join the massive adoption for DeFi.
Yeah, and I think that, James, do you have any comments on that as well?
Yeah, sure. I think, combination of the first two questions, I think for the first one, I think, on one hand, it grow pretty quickly. You see the Uniswap and also MegaRavi, these kind of lending and DEX kind of being pretty used widely right now. But on the other hand, TVL for the Ethereum side is still less than 10%. So I still think there will be a lot of adoption and new creation of DeFi in the future. So there's still, I guess, right now it's like a less than $100 billion, kind of the TVL, but we will probably see the growth of TVLs, go more than $1 trillion in the next few years. I think there's still a lot of way long term to grow. About adoption side, I guess it's definitely something that which makes sense to me, because in the CeFi world, I mean, there's a lot of problem for the project and or for the individual to enter into the market. And in the DeFi world, it really creates a fair market that everyone can do whatever they want to do, right? So, but for the retail customer, retail investor, they easily, kind of like trading their or invest their tokens through a Uniswap. But for the without this kind of like knowing too much about how to do the trading well, because basically on a secondary market, if you don't know how to do the trading, then I mean, for the long term, trader, that's fine. You just buy and hold and lock the project in the long term. But for a trader, if you're not professional enough, then we will probably lose a lot of money, because there are so many kind of quant trading and kind of professional people trade against you. But on the DEX side, I feel that it's a much fairer market, that the institutional don't have a lot of leverage or information or whatever, to bet against the retail customer. So that's much fair. And from a project side, it's also the same. Previously you definitely want to get listed on a major exchange, then you beg for them for the listing, right? So it's pretty, I would say, bad for the overall the system. But if once you got a Uniswap, then everyone can do self-listing pretty quickly. If there are enough people recognize your project and want to participate, then your LP pool become pretty big, and that will save a lot of kind of centralized vetting process from a big exchange, which could not be fair, right? So I guess there's oversight on adoption side. I think for the it's just a much better ecosystem. I think the adoption is something that clearly there's an other good things for the DeFi, and I think it will happen gradually and pretty kind of quickly in the future.
Yeah, I like how you brought up the topic of the decentralized exchange listings. Before, predominantly, in order to get your coin on any type of ecosystem, you had to go onto an exchange. There was no way to kind of find a way to transfer your tokens, or you got to do it with user to user, peer to peer. Especially during the early days, it was really difficult for everyone to say, where do I find an environment in order to just grassroots my community and just start growing? Because I don't have enough money to, let's say if you're building out for something that's a smaller scale, you're not looking for any funding or any fundraising, you don't have a proper company structure or anything like that, but you're producing something for a game or something, right? Like a social currency, and you're trying to get listed onto an exchange is the only way that you're able to provide buying and selling pressure. And then from there, you got to do market makers, you're going to have proper liquidity on there and everything. So it really created an area to where a lot of projects now are just being released on Uniswap. They're just going for DEX, they're just going for Uniswap, SushiSwap, QuickSwap, kind of like all these platforms. And also another thing that it also unlocks as well is like we also see like the different fundamentals of like financial tools being replaced. If you're looking at like potentially integrating like CeFi, if you go into like a bank account, you deposit money into the bank, you don't know what the hell the bank does with that money. But in decentralized finance, you see every step of it. So if you deposit into a pool, you see where that pool invests. You see what's going on with it, how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. You're able to track every single cent and being able to track all the assets. So now you're seeing a more fairer model. And a lot of users are not used to seeing, oh, I can do like 20% at least on stables, or like some of these different yields, and show like the different APY percentages. So it's like for them, they're now realizing that how much the banks actually make off of users, and how to basically become your own bank. You're now having these financial products to really revolutionize and give you the upper step and becoming your own bank without having to potentially leave your home or get any I would say licensing and stuff. But also on that note as well, it's like I kind of want to hear your takes on what you guys think about centralized finance integrating into decentralized finance to kind of come back to it. Like my personal perspective is like I would say within the next 5 years there is going to be a centralized entity that's going to be really, really heavily involved in the DeFi because of the yields, and then from there they can probably have like a product where they say, hey, look, we'll give you 2% back or 4% back in a bank account, and even if you're on a checkings, but then have it route a lot of the funds into like decentralized finance services. What are you guys' thoughts on that? I'll start with you first, Yosef, if you have any.
Yeah, sure. The reality is that right now, the world is facing with a lot of issues. Let's start with the European Union, right? When you have people that you have to pay interest for you to keep money in your bank account. And in America, there is no such a thing as interest, but you're lucky enough that you don't have to pay them to keep your money, right? The world is looking for a solution. They're looking for something that, listen, we need to put our money in place someplace, somehow, and generate the yield, because right now, all of the inflation, people are, still are afraid to have money go out, whether it's to go into crypto, whether it's to go into stocks. People are still keeping money in their bank accounts, and that needs to change. And one of the perfect solutions is exactly what you said, is bringing the centralized finance. You show people exactly what happens to their money from A through Z. But then you're going through the same exact problem that you have with everything else. Is this too good to be true? Like, people psychologically are not there yet. If something goes wrong, who do I sue? If there is a problem, if I'm a bank manager or something, I want to make a deposit right now, send $100 million. How am I going to justify to the board of directors, to my shareholders, that I decided to take a gamble on decentralized finance because it was something that was generating the yield? So the point is that I think that in the maturity-wise, levels-wise, we're not there yet, but we're slowly getting there. And the pieces of the puzzle are coming together because people are creating those exact links that are going to link the real world to the the crypto world. And it's all about I think it behooves us as the community to sort of keep the open door and let those particular products flourish and let them show the value, because that's the bridge moving forward. And regarding what you said about eventually there being this big centralized finance entity out there that will pay sort of like rebate them the particular interest yields. You already kind of have those, and you have quite a few startups right now and companies that are designed to do exactly just that, because most of the neobanks as a business model, they're not working. Most of those guys are still in negative cash flow, and they're looking for additional ways to bring the cash flow. And on the other hand, you have this DeFi that's sort of like a solution to all of their problems. But then on the other hand, that how do you take this established banking system that's been hundreds of years in making, and you bring it to something so immature that's only like a few years old? How do you really combine those two together, and what are the bridges that need to be? So I think that that's sort of like a something that we as the community really have to support, those projects that are actually going to build those bridges to actually help more and more people to have a more adoption into DeFi. Because unless those guys, and say what you say, with all due respect to us and the $1.5 trillion market cap for crypto, the real world is the financial system. And if they cannot, if they cannot join us, then they will try the ways to defeat us, and they have all the money in the world to do that. So I think that it behooves us for us to sort of like open our hands and open our doors and help those guys out in this journey, and be as patient with them as possible for them to actually make the move. Because without that move, we are up for a much longer upper hill of a battle that would be ahead of us. So that's my opinion.
James, I would love your perspective on this as well. Like having centralized finance integrated into decentralized finance. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the trend. I mean, for the centralized finance side, clearly DeFi have so many good things. For them, it's much fair market as a trend. I mean, without a doubt, they will kind of adopt it. But for DeFi side, if you only have DeFi problem, how would these kind of huge capital moving to DeFi, right? So you still need education there. So centralized finance is a good way to do education and build a good bridge between the DeFi product and also the capital and also all the retail investor. So it's a very, very, very good way for building a bridge between these two things. And still you need these kind of much bigger ecosystem and capital market adopted, then the DeFi thing could be bigger. It cannot just be people moving into the market and buying certain, then possibly in the DeFi world. It definitely need adoption from the DeFi world as well. On the other hand, also this is something that everyone's talking about, maybe how to make DeFi legit, and this is by kind of cooperating with the DeFi product. This is definitely something that which also build a bridge between the DeFi project and also the government and regulator. This is something that we need to keep doing education for them and make sure this is something they will understand and they will understand this is a good thing and people will recognize it. So on the policy side, on the adoption side, I think DeFi always needs DeFi to support it. So that's why these two things are not competitors. They actually have a lot of kind of common point they can work on together. So that's, I think, clearly the trend of the future is DeFi work closely with DeFi in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that also for DeFi, we're at a very early stage as well. Like if you look at like the regular financial systems, like a lot of their products are still not integrated into decentralized finance. Right, we're barely seeing the insurance market pop off. We're having like 4 or 5 insurance protocols compared to the thousands that are currently in the real world. And also for like DeFi insurance as well, it's like you can insure anything. Anything is even a speculation of like a game. Let's say if I want to say, hey, it's up like a predictions market. Hey, look, this event is going to rain or this event is going to be sunny. Having it to where you secure your deposit or secure your ticket and stuff like that. Like those type of insurances are still not available in DeFi. You're also looking at like mortgages and also like car loans and things like that too. I believe it was Aave that was looking into decentralized mortgages. And that's going to be something that's going to be really interesting because like, if you have these mortgage-based systems, you're now able to do, I would say, collateralized loans for, let's say, multiple properties, or kind of like if you want to, use your crypto in order to buy a house and then just pay in ETH each time, like still having that financial freedom to pick the asset that you want to choose. And so, yeah, I think that the industry is still super early, and over time we're going to grow 10x. If you look at like the growth of what happened like last year compared to this year, right? DeFi was, I remember when the market cap was around not even $1 billion. Like it was like 200 million or something. And then our exponential growth just started increasing over DeFi summer. And now I think we're at like 14 or 15 billion last I checked. Or not even, probably even more than that now. But we're seeing the trajectory of it increasing because there's more financial products that will be added on. And I think that another area as well is like the yields, if you looked at like across multiple platforms, are starting to decrease. They're starting to have a little bit of a more balanced structure. So where we get to a point where, it then stabilizes the yield because that's what it is. Like in the beginning, it's always volatile because it's up and down depending on speculation. But after it's kind of like vetted into the system, these yields are now stabilized because people are vetting it, So like in terms of like DeFi yields and everything, where do you guys think like would we be able to kind of get to a place where we're at a steady pace to where we can kind of remove some of these, I would say, speculations and kind of have it to where it's actually vetted within the systems? Yosef?
Yeah, I think that slowly we're gonna get there. Like you already are seeing that in the beginning it was wild, 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 wild west. So now we're in the wild, wild west. So hopefully, slowly we're gonna get there. But you mentioned something very important about decentralized insurance protocols, and this is where I think that the time gap that exists. The reason why I don't have many good quality insurance protocols out there, it's because currently in insurance you still need human beings. You still need real actuaries. You need still people that are going to evaluate. They're going to make sure the claim is there. And for some reason, that's what I said earlier, that DeFi people, we all want to believe that code runs the world and it's the coder's world and code is God and that's it. And unfortunately, unless we realize that we're not there yet, it's a process that needs to get there. And in the meantime, we need more and more people. And if we're more open to the ideas that there are going to be people that are going to be making more and more decisions until we get to where we need to be, where literally code runs everything. I think that's sort of like a first ideology change that we all have to make in ourselves to accept people to come and join on board. Now, regarding the yields, you already are seeing that, as you said yourself very well. I remember when the DeFi market was what, $20 million? Not even that. It was just a couple of years ago. And right now, we're talking about, what is it, $100 billion, I think, last time I checked. The total value, and we just took a deep little dive, but still, we're talking about tens of billions of dollars. And you said it perfectly, just the baby stages right now. It's the baby steps. And when it runs, when it starts to walk, when it starts to crawl, oh my goodness, the opportunity is there. I think that you're saying 10x. I think it's not ambitious enough. I think that right now, with proper blocks in the puzzle, I think that this could even do 100x. Why? Because this is the future. Because people are tired of already having the centralized guys making all the money. And the best part about it is you actually see those guys talking about banks, talking about insurance companies. They're looking to get involved as much as they can. They're looking for ways to get in. And I think it's up to us just to open the doors for them and let them, not be the guys on the outside, but let them also come join and be part of the party as well. That's what I think.
I want to correct myself. I just looked it up. So currently, right now on DeFi Pulse, we're at a 57.66 billion. So three to 4x of what the number I said earlier. Also, James, I'd like your input on this as well. It's like, what do you think? Like, are the yields right now, like, is it getting too low? Is it going to be, you think the industry is going to grow 10x, 20x, or what are your perspectives on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think previously, to be honest, the yield there, it's way too high for last kind of like your DeFi rent. You got a crazy kind of kind of APY like what like a 2,000, 3,000% for a year. That's not going to last. It's definitely not going to real, because it won't last for a year. It may last for months. I mean, I don't think it will last for months. Maybe it just lasts for a day, right? So you cannot get like 20x in like your in a year return. That's not going to happen. And what I think is, previously there are a lot of projects in the DeFi space which basically doing just the same thing. So it doesn't make any sense for so many projects to exist. Right now, I think for the good already the lot of the low quality project already being kind of eliminated from the market. The only quality project with good quality only will last for a long time, and for those, for the APY should be very, very stable and with a reasonable number, like 20 or 15. That's a reasonable number. So for us, for our company, we are still mining Curve. Definitely, we already buy some Curve and we have some boost, and the APY is pretty, I would say, pretty good. Right now for stablecoin mining, it's like around like 30 to 40% return a year. That's pretty good. That's much better than quant trading and the others, right? So already this is already APY, which compared to traditional world, it's a crazy high number, and we still think this is very reasonable. In the traditional world, if you have the kind of like annual return at like 3-4% for US dollar, that should be good enough. Right now you got 30 or 40. That should be a good one. And Curve is a really high quality project, so there's not a lot of risk unless like a Binance Smart Chain project. You will see a lot of crazy things happened before. For the Binance Smart Chain project, because these projects are pretty low quality, there are security issues. Everything can go wrong. So I suggest, for the investor perspective, you just care about the high quality DeFi project, and you can get a fixed return, which is good. For the APY side and yield side, I think it definitely will come to a very stable, and compared to traditional, it's a high number, but still stable and reasonable number. Otherwise, I don't think the trend can last. So that's my prediction.
Yeah, like the trend is kind of like with these yields, as more people enter the space, of course it's going to go down and kind of like stabilize at a certain point. Like one of the financial products that I haven't seen, kind of like I've seen one or two about this, but like the one that I haven't seen is basically like the interest, I would say, the future yields interest arbitrages. So let's say, for example, if you're speculating that you're going to have 10% per year off of yield off of an LP pool, but then be able to realize portion of it and then reinvest it into like something else, or kind of speculate it. Like the interest market alone is something that's going to be, I think that once it's built out in DeFi, you're going to start seeing a lot more fluid liquidity and more stabilizing of rates, because you can speculate and say, hey, look, this platform is doing 20%, but I think the yield is going down. Let me realize my yields right now, and then take out that initial collateral. And then so yeah, I think like the interest market as well is like we haven't fully built that out to kind of lower yields across different protocols, and then kind of stabilize them down as well. But before we kind of like conclude, I want to have like just kind of like concluding thoughts of where you guys see the future of DeFi and where it kind of is going to bridge from here, and what can we look forward to as well.
I'll go. I think that we're gonna see some very big things that are gonna be happening in DeFi. A lot of very cool people are gonna start, coming and joining the party. Just last week, there was a very big announcement that happened that the former commissioner of trade for the European Union, Mr. Phil Hogan, this is the guy that negotiated the trade deals between European Union and the United States of America, and this is the guy that negotiated trade deals of EU and China. He's the guy right now that joins the board of directors of a DeFi project. So it just tells you as to like how much the politicians and let's call it the establishment, right? How much they're actually looking at this and how interested they are. That he announced two announcements. One was Vodafone. He's going to sit on board of directors of Vodafone, and the other one is for Astra. The proof of trust is the name of the company. So it just makes you think how there is more to come and more adoption there is to come, that you're going to have more and more people that are going to be joining on board. We're probably going to see some very big regulations that are going to come to place as well. And we're probably going to see a lot of like I said earlier, our rule book is going to be challenged by the established rule book. And I think it's all about to make a consensus that works together, and the companies that are going to be the knots and the links between the two ecosystems, I think those guys are going to be the biggest winners over the next decade, if not even longer.
Thank you, Yosef. James, what are your kind of like final inputs as well?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think overall speaking, the DeFi will have a very, very big growth in the future. For example, I said DBL previously, in the next couple of years, it will at least go to more than $1 trillion. That's my prediction. On the specific sector side, I think right now we will see mature project like Uniswap in the DEX side and also in the lending side. I mean, these are two sectors I think are pretty mature right now. You got big player like Uniswap at 40 diluted valuation at like $20 billion maybe, and you got RV MakerDAO and these kind of mature, and the Compound as well, and these kind of mature project and the lending side. But for other side, just like what we mentioned before, like insurance, you still cannot. Nexus Mutuals it is there, but that's not mature and big enough. You will see still a lot of great projects came out from that sector, and also derivatives I think still are pretty small right now. I think there are a lot of sector in the financial industry, are pretty big, but in the DeFi was still not mature yet. So I will see, on one hand, we will see the mature product like Uniswap were pretty good in the future, and the others we will see the new sector like derivatives and insurance, these kind of sector become pretty grow pretty quickly in the future. You got 10x and 100x in the future. So because they are very, very small, but they should be big enough. That's on the sector side. On the other hand, which makes things very interesting is from different protocol. You will see on the Ethereum protocol, they try to, you got Bitcoin, you got WBTC main to the Ethereum protocol. Ethereum protocol is going to main for everybody, like the Polkadot, Near, Definities, Solanas, or the other solution will be all the ecosystem have their own DeFi ecosystem. But how would the ecosystem communicate with each other? Do you need a cross chain, or what is the best way to do that? Is that just like a mint the other protocols to the Ethereum ecosystem? Is Ethereum going to be really the protocol that all the DeFi use cases will be used on top of that? That would be interesting to see. Clearly, because Solana, Polkadot, and all the ecosystem, they have their own DeFi project. It would be interesting to see what kind of connections for these different ecosystem to communicate with each other, to work together with each other in the future. So that's also interesting things that we will see. So overall speaking, I personally am super bullish on DeFi. So we will just keep investing and just supporting the good DeFi project. And I believe the DeFi will at least goes the size of DeFi will at least goes 10x in the next few years.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up like the cross-chain area as well, because like if you look at like decentralized finance, people think that it's only Ethereum, or it's only on Binance Smart Chain, or only on Polygon. Like if we're able to bridge all those, like imagine like how much yield is on each. Think of them as like each individual purses, right? You have all your pockets of money on each one of them that don't interoperate with each other. But if you find a way to stabilize all of them, whether you trade for arbitraging between two chains, like let's say, for example, arbitraging between Uniswap and Binance Smart Chain, or arbitraging between Binance Smart Chain and Polygon, things like that. I think like that would really tie in a lot of the liquidity, and that right now like the liquidity is very fragmented too. So yeah, I like how it's like one day later on we're going to see a lot of, let's say, arbitrages and integrations with one another as well.
But you already kind of have that. I agree with you. But let's face it. If it was not for Chainlink, we would not have the DeFi summer or DeFi world at all. Period. And that's exactly what those guys do. They give you ability to talk amongst chains, and that's how yields are really generated in. But most of the guys that generate yield is because Chainlink, and as Chainlink is going to grow and you're going to have more and more competitors, they're going to give similar solutions. Cross-chain is the way to go, because instead of going under ecosystem and people saying let's kill Ethereum somehow, I think it's time for us to unite and say let's work together. We're in this together, and yeah, maybe you'll be bigger than me, I'll be bigger than you, but the point over here is that we all need to be let's make the pie bigger, and then we can discuss about who gets what pie afterwards. You know what I mean? So that's what I think about that.
Yeah, like the fragmentation of like liquidity right now, it's like we understand each chain is separate, but like what I think later on is going to happen is that a lot of sub protocols are going to be building those bridges, how Yosef was talking about earlier. Instead of CeFi to DeFi, it's basically just chain to chain. They're going to start building these bridges. They're going to start building these infrastructures, so that later, whenever the liquidity does kind of like come pool together, you'll start seeing more either stabilizing yields. There's always going to be arbitrage no matter what. Even if you're using two protocols within Ethereum, like you can swap between Uniswap and SushiSwap, and then just speculate on price. If there's like low enough gas fees, you can arbitrage. And that's what I did like the early days of like SushiSwap. I arbitraged the ETH and USDT pair with USDC and DAI pair. So basically switched them out and everything. And then you see the different stablecoin arbitrage rates too. So one can have ETH at 2000, one can have it at 2020 or something. That's a $20 trade. If you have a big enough position, you have 5 ETH, that's a $100 trade minus whatever gas fee it is. Then you kind of swap it back and forth. So it's similar to like like how market makers would do it too, because you're basically stabilizing the price on both sides. And I think it will be pretty interesting seeing it later on when you have a cross chain. Because even with Chainlink, yes, Chainlink can verify the data and say, hey, look, the data is correct. But with AMM models, you'll have it to where unless an action is called upon that pool doesn't lower the price bearing. So I think like later on, yeah, the future of DeFi is really, really bright, and really, really excited for everything to happen. And once again, thank you guys for coming on today and providing your insights to us at DeFi Summit. it's really interesting how DeFi is going to be growing, and there's a lot of big players that are currently in the space right now that really want us to improve and grow. All right. But other than that, thank you guys, and also thanks to the listeners that are the listeners and watchers right now. We're going to be having more exciting stuff coming up as well, so stay tuned.